Okay, welcome to obviously a chat with myself and Ambassador Scott Hill for Zone 3. I've been Ambassador now for coming up to 11 years. Pleased to say we've got Kieran Lindars with us today as well, professional triathlete who's recently broke the British record at IRONMAN Texas last weekend in a time of 7 hours and 32 minutes 3 seconds.
Yes. No.
Has that sunk in yet?
I think the result hasn't sunk in quite yet. I think time-wise, it's just a little bit faster than the previous record that I set, so I felt like that was within myself. But I think when you look at the field at Texas, there was very few top names that were missing from that list, so it's given me a lot of confidence moving forward into the World Championship. So the results slowly setting in, but I think it was one of those days that everything comes together, so I'm still coming to terms with almost how to try and do it again.
Yeah, I think one thing that we as British athletes struggle with is hot climates. You know, typically in the UK it's a colder climate, it varies so much, and we don't actually acclimatise to UK weather because of the variance in the weather so much. So having to train through the winter and then go out to Texas, how's that been for you, and how have you had to train around that?
So I mean, it's no surprise that it's difficult training in the UK over the winter, but I think it kind of just, if you can tolerate the bad conditions, it just makes every day seem nice. And it started raining actually partway through Texas, and you can, I think sometimes I always try and think that the people that are only ever used to training in the sun, that kind of gets to them a bit more. So it's almost like a secret weapon that if you can do all the training in the bad conditions, then race day is just that bit easier. Obviously the only downside is you might not be heat acclimatized, but there are pretty well-known ways now of doing it. So I don't ever really feel like I'm too far behind now when it's coming to the hot conditions.
Yeah, okay. So let's go back a little bit then, back in time we should say. How did you get into triathlon? Was it accidental or was it pre-planned? How did that happen for you?
No, totally accidental. So my mother wasn't the most confident swimmer. She can swim very well, but not particularly confident in the water. The water scares her a little bit, so she wanted to make sure that her sons could swim well. So I learned to swim, as probably most children do. I was seen by my swim teacher to be kind of maybe had a little bit of talent, so he introduced me into the competitive world of swimming. I ran for school in cross country. Someone again scouted me during just a local school race, and then it kind of came down to my mother again, where she said, why don't we try this thing called a triathlon? It'll be good for your run and swim training. So we did it. First one, I managed to be right up there in the results, and got notice of the Southeast Regional coach, and I kind of just fell into it naturally. So it was never planned. It just kind of happened, and I think that's good that it happened naturally, because everything's kind of been on my terms. So it's been difficult to work some things out, being that kind of my parents and myself were kind of trying to figure everything out by ourselves, but it was also always fun, and if anything it's just a hobby that's kind of gone out of control really.
Okay, so we can say you're an accidental triathlete.
Accidental triathlete.
And what age were you when you did that first triathlon?
So my first triathlon, I would have been around 13, 14, and then when I started racing properly, as like trying to take it somewhere, I first started doing the Super Series at 16. So in that regard, I was relatively late, but I had been swimming and running from young.
So running, swimming before that at 16, sort of pick it up a bit more. Okay, and what period then did you feel that you can make a go of this and become, looking further forward, you could become a professional triathlete? What sort of time in your life did that sort of trigger and think, do you know what, I can do this longer term?
I think I always had the belief that I could do it, but I think it was more that I just wanted to see how good I could be at something when I really put my mind to it. And the first time that I actually thought that I could be quite good at this was I kind of stumbled into it again. I did really well in the relay qualifiers, and that automatically the selection policy was just if you come top 3 you get to go to the European youth trials, youth relay, and I had just really spent a lot of time over the winter trying to get my swimming up to a level that was competitive, just trying to see how far I could take it. And I guess I accidentally came in that top 3, and then I was opened up to this European professional side of the sport, which took me a long time to actually solidify me. It took me another 10 years to really get into that role, but that was the first time that I thought I could potentially race at this level.
Okay, and then was that through Loughborough?
No, so I was still in sixth form at this time. So this was before I went to university, and then I ended up going to Brighton University to train with the South East region. That's where my South East region coaches were based. So I went there instead of Leeds and Loughborough, just because I felt that was a bit more familiar to me.
Yeah. Did you find at that very early stage then that you made a lot of mistakes, or if you look back and think about it, what mistakes do you think you made that could have been different?
I think the biggest difficulty with every athlete, and where I went wrong, was when you're coming up as a junior, you're still got lots of things on, so the more training you can fit in, the better you get, and so on and so on. And there comes a point at where just doing more of anything doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get better. So I think the transition between doing it part-time and taking it more seriously, there's that line of finding out what is the limit of training. And I think as well with triathlon, because it's such a diverse sport and you're working on your swimming and you're trying to fit everything, swim, run and bike, and you're trying to fit everything together, I think sometimes the focus can be lost. So if I've got 2 sessions in the day, if I nail one in the morning but the evening session is bad, has that been a good day? Did I overdo the first session? Did I underdo the session at the end of the day? So that's where trying to work it out takes some time. And then I also want to say that I don't think anyone's got it right yet. I almost cringe at the things that we were doing 10 years ago, with running 23mm tyres at 120 psi, and now we're wider tyres and running half that. Mm-hmm. So there are things that I just think just sport naturally evolves, where you'll always make mistakes, but that's kind of the beauty of it, really.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, looking as a coach myself, looking at what I see athletes do, some days they feel, well, I did more because I felt good on that day, but it impacts them days ahead, or, the session that you might be doing the second or third session, or the second day or third day. So it's quite a key point that you bring up there. With Ironman Texas then, when you went into that race, did you go with the intention to beat your previous time, which was only a few seconds slower? And did at some point you realise that you're in such a good place that you were in contention for that record again?
So I think anything when it comes to Ironman racing and records and anything over that distance, you're kind of relying on the conditions to be good. So I don't think you ever go into races expecting to go for a time. The main goal was to qualify early for the World Championships, which meant trying to get into the top 6. That was automatic, and then you obviously have roll down and things, but it was trying to get into those top spots to qualify. So when we were on the bike and we got through halfway and I could see that the bike split was sub 2, I knew we were on for a quick day, provided the pace kept going. But again, you're still relying on the bike pack moving well, you're still relying on it staying cool enough on the run. So I don't think I was really aware of where we were with the time, but I also knew that if I was with those top guys, I knew we were moving well in pace and time, and I also knew with my position that it must have been a good day because of the talent that was behind me and how close I was to the talent in front of me. So I kind of knew within that last bit that we were on for a good time. But I mean, anyone that races these distances knows, like the last 5k, it could be a 20-minute run, it could be 2 hours. So you try and not think about the outcome too much, but like I said, it's for a really quick time over that distance, you are relying on quite a few things coming together.
Yeah, and I know we've spoken about this tonight already, and talking about age group athletes as well. And I know with the pros, you go off at the front, you've pretty much got a clear run, and now we've got obviously the rangefinder in there as well for your drafting sort of limit. And we've mentioned this evening that the age groups, as they start to come through the field and some of the stronger athletes can interfere the pro race. How was that, and did that impact the race for yourself on the day?
Well, to be honest, I think we actually interrupted quite a lot of the age groupers' races. When the natural front of the race and some of the waves that are behind us, simply because there's been a delay to their start time, when it's a 2-lap course, there's obviously going to be times when you've caught people. But we we had people that were a fast age group were overtaking some of the slower age group, or even just different categories, and then we were overtaking them. But then in our haste to try and overtake, we then might be intruding on our draft zone. So then all of a sudden we've got to slow down quite significantly. And then that means that now the person that we've overtaken, we're now matching their pace or now going slower. So we've almost brake checked the people that we're going round. So there is it can be difficult where even though we're pros and we're going the fastest, we're actually getting in the way of other people's races. And I think the important thing with that is it's for very brief moments. So it's just trying to be patient. At the end of the day, like as much as it's an important race and there's a lot of time that goes into it, it is just a triathlon. And getting too worked up about something that's going to be 5 seconds of a 8-hour day is not worth getting too worked up. So I think it's just about trying to be patient and understanding that like everyone's having their own battles and their own moments. And I think that's the beauty of some of these long course races where just finishing it is enough. So you're actually experiencing the day with other people, and it's not trying to think just about what you're doing. It's trying to help everyone get across the line, if that's just saying well done to someone or noticing a number of a friend, or so it's just trying to be patient and just understanding that, you know, we can be a little bit calm. We're not going to lose too much in such a long day. Yeah,
and I know over the last 2 to 3 years your performance has increased significantly, obviously to the point now where you've got the British record. But what's changed in the last couple of years to make you step up a level and bring you up to that level where you've taken the record in Texas?
I think there's been quite a lot of clarity in training. Like I said about it can be easy to get confused with what you're doing and how you're doing it. And just having clear clarity, like if I'm needing to do some speed work for the start of my race, what do I need to do that speed work? Some of you may be surprised that like a typical Wednesday session for me, it might be 6 100s and we're doing that off 10 minutes and that will take the whole hour.
Yeah.
And we swum 600 meters, but that's what you need to go max speed, or if we're doing lactate tolerance or something. So it's having the confidence to know that you need to do that. And then my top 10 at the Worlds in 2024, there was kind of a pivotal moment where before I'd got that result, if I was taking a rest day or something, I'd be thinking I should be doing more because I don't know, and that I'm trying to race against these people. And then when I got that top 10, it changed from actually I can trust myself and what I'm doing and what my coaches are saying, more importantly as well. And that is a double-edged sword where you can get too confident in what you're doing. But that, I think, just like being confident that you're doing these training decisions to try and get a result, and that you've thought about it, and just trusting that you might need to see it out for a few weeks, but just trusting where you're going with that vision.
Yeah, and I guess that's pushing limits, but staying consistent at the same time, and knowing what you can and can't do. So how is that transferred into your training then? What's your current peak weeks looking like? So if you're going, let's say we're going back into Ironman Texas, then that last 4 weeks, ideally, what's that looking like for you as an athlete just now?
So usually the last 4 weeks, I kind of have 2 weeks where I'm trying to tick off those, I almost want to say the confidence sessions. So for me, I want to make sure kind of in that last 4 weeks, the first 1 or 2 weeks of that, I've probably done a run that's got up to about 32k, and that's just then the confidence to know that I can do the marathon distance. And there's some sessions that become a little bit more race specific where I might try and hold race power to a near enough race time where you go, okay, I'm now confident that I can do that. Or if I'm not quite there, maybe actually I need to just have a slightly different race plan, which is fine. And then 2 weeks out, usually at that point, it's starting to wind down, starting to actually enjoy the training, because typically by 4 weeks to go, I'm pretty miserable, I'm pretty tired from the training, and it's trying to allow yourself to recover. And if anything, just not do anything stupid, like not, oh, I'm rested and therefore I should be doing more, I should be doing less. It's just relaxing, enjoying it, and just getting ready to race. And like a lot of work has gone into doing the race, so it's now time to try and start enjoying it and almost get the body ready to race. And you want to kind of get to that day wanting to go hard. And that's another thing in the past where I felt like I'm missing something, and then you try and fit something in the last 4 weeks, when in reality it's just now it's time to freshen up and get ready to go.
And going into taper then, every athlete out there I think suffers with the fact they feel like I haven't done enough, or I haven't done, or I've done too much. You know, do you still have them same feelings as well in taper sort of period?
I think I'm old enough now and experienced enough now to know that kind of 4 weeks out you kind of have what you've got now. There's not a lot that will change, so it is about just trying to freshen up. And I think where people go wrong with tapers is if you've tapered well, at some point during that taper you're just going to feel horrendous. If it's that you feel heavy or sluggish, or you usually just do feel bad, and a lot of that's usually to do with the glycogen stores being back up to what they should be, and just the body actually being rested. You can feel a bit stiffer because you haven't been doing just the natural mobility of the sport. So if you're tapering well, at some point in that taper you will feel rubbish, and it's trying to just see that as a good thing. It's a bit like on race day when you're nervous, you see that as a good thing. You don't see that as a bad thing, even though it doesn't feel pleasant. So I think it's just understanding that process and trusting that you're getting ready to go, and not because you are rested and because you are getting more stressed, there's a lot more doubt that creeps in, where you go, oh, I wonder if I should change my saddle height, or I should change this, or quickly mix that around. And in reality, you're just trying to just keep everything consistent and just wind down.
And with your training then, are you very data driven? Do you train to feel? Do you mix it up a little bit? How do you sort of factor that in? I know you work with coaches and you've developed over the years, and we've talked about parameters there and stuff like that, and it's very much data for training and racing. But have you learned over the years about feel as well, and do you kind of incorporate that into training and racing?
So I was someone that was very data driven when I was younger, and I've actually kind of learnt now that I almost don't look at data. If anything, it's just to help guide decisions. So most of my training now is to feel. I don't think I've had a pace set for me in my run sessions in about 3 years. It's all to feel. It's all like 5k feel, 10k feel, and then you'll use pace to justify that. So if I go out for a feel, oh, I don't feel quite good. Okay, what's my heart rate doing? And it's similar for the bike. Okay, I might not be holding the power that I need to, but am I going fast enough? Like, okay, yes, I'm pushing 400 watts, but is that getting me anywhere? And if it's not, how's my heart rate looking? How's my this looking? And I think particularly with, and even just looking at data points, you then also have to question how accurate those data points are, and how many times have people gone to races and all of a sudden a power meter or heart rate monitor is not working. You have to be able to go to feel. So a lot of my stuff is to feel, and that's the main thing. Because if you're feeling really rough, like, your body's pretty good at telling you that something's wrong, and sometimes when data drives those decisions, it actually forgets that the human body is actually a rather inconsistent thing. So even if the data looks okay, it hasn't accounted for the fact that, you know, maybe the body just had a terrible night's sleep and it hasn't quite registered that.
No, I think it's quite a pertinent point, that is, as humans, we are human. You know, we do have bad night's sleep, we have stress, you know, foods and everything else. Impacts of general life has a big impact on what we do, and we can delve into that in various scenarios, both male and female, because it differs drastically. But how do you deal with days like that when it's not going perfect, you know, and not necessarily the data, but you're not feeling great, and you've got specific training sessions coming up, or the race itself, and you know you're not feeling 100%? How do you cope with that? Do you just back off for a couple of days? Do you try and get better sleep, better food, and just accept that I might have to just back off this training for a little bit?
So I think when it comes to racing and you're just not having a day, it's just you're human, and actually at the end of the day, like I said earlier, it's just a triathlon. It's a privilege to be able to do it. So if you're just having a bad day, there are so much more things in the world that can be going wrong, that if you just don't have it on that day, it doesn't really matter too much. When it comes to training, I think the whole reason that you train is you're trying to fatigue the body, and at some point the body's going to be fatigued. So in some ways, if the body's fatigued enough for you to need rest, you're kind of doing your job. You might have overdone it slightly, and you might underdo it at other points, but you're going to be fatigued at some point, and you're going to have to rest to get the benefit from that. So the fact that you're tired or not quite with it, it's almost a good thing. It's almost that you're doing your job. Obviously, if it keeps occurring, and this is often when you need a coach to kind of be looking externally and looking at all the factors, then you might need to modify some things. But you're training to tire the body. You're going to be tired at some point. So it's just accepting that that's part of the journey.
Yeah, and is that quite a good rapport you got with your coach, where you can say, put your hand up and go, you know what, I am tired here, because they may not see that data, but you can physically feel it. Have you got that rapport where you can speak up and go, I'm actually pretty tired here, and you'll work together and back off a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. My coaches know me well enough, and I think you as a person, you know your body better than anyone, and I'm kind of at that point of training now where I'm not someone that's missing something because I want an easy route out. So they know that I wouldn't be raising something if I didn't think it was important. And I think my running coach did when I came back from university, he came to me and said, I'm your run advisor. So, and that's kind of a shift from being a younger athlete to a adult, is we come together with an idea, and then we talk about it, as opposed to it's set and I just follow aimlessly, or I don't say anything. And I like that idea of that a coach is advising you, and if they didn't know that I wasn't feeling a certain way, then I'm almost not helping them with making decisions, because they're not going to know how I feel on a particular day. And it's also important for the coach just to know, in terms of the overall plan, is the coach is trying to get you as good as you can be. So if you're not giving them the feedback required, then they may not just know. They may just think everything's okay. And particularly if you're being coached online, is if you're not raising anything, you just assume that everything's going to plan. If you're hitting numbers, hitting that. But it is important that if you do think something's wrong, to speak up, because it's better to speak up and be wrong, or maybe not have misjudged something slightly, than, oh no, I'm injured, no, I can't do anything for 8 weeks.
Yeah, and there's a different comparison with athletes there, where you will have some that will push through, some that may not, and some that will talk and some that won't. But it's a key point that athletes need to talk to their coaches and elaborate everything they're feeling and doing. So looking back to Texas last week then, obviously main pack of cyclists. I'm aware you cycled with Cam for some of that as well, who we know is a phenomenal cyclist. Do you think, or what point in that race do you sort of think, well, I can make the top 10 here? Do you know some of them are biking too hard and you're quite content with where you are? How does that sort of factor out in the race? Where do you sort of feel within that race that, you know, you're on for a good time, you could be in the top 10, top 5, whatever it may be? Are some of the biking, or are you using, there's a lot of questions here, but are you using some of them athletes to your benefit by using their strengths?
So for me, I'm usually, if I'm having a good race, most of the time you won't see me. I'll only show my face really at the end of the run. I like to race quite passively and take the hits as they come, and then try and outlast the race dynamic. With a pack like that, you're never going to know too much, and I think everyone goes through these ebbs and flows of racing, where 1 minute they feel great, 1 minute they don't feel good. I had a pretty rocky patch within 2 hours, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go backwards now. And then I felt then really good for the last 2 hours, and I felt a bit too good for the first bit of the run, and went a bit too mental, and then at the end I didn't have as much to sustain that pace. So I don't think you ever know, because I think that sort of racing, you're kind of almost bluffing everyone. You kind of look strong until you don't. And but I knew that I was on for a good race when we first got off the bike, and people that I did feel that were super strong, you can kind of tell when they first got off the bike that it was they'd potentially done a little bit too much, or didn't necessarily enjoy those first few kilometres. So I felt pretty confident once I'd got off the bike that I could potentially have a top 10. The bigger question was whether or not I could qualify for Worlds, because there was a lot of people there. I just trusted that I knew Schomburg was going to go off fast, and then when Jelle Geens went with him, I was kind of like, well, there are two people that they could both go bust here. So you have to be confident enough to know that you're hard to beat, but humble enough to know that you're also easy to beat. So it's this fine act of trusting that you've gone at the right pace and everything, but also not letting people get too much of a time into you.
Yeah, and as a Zone 3 pro athlete then, what's your wetsuit of choice, and how important is it to having confidence in the equipment that you're using?
So I race in the Aspire wetsuit, which is often a surprise when I say that to people, because I think most people look at the Vanquish as being the more the professional or the top suit. I like the Aspire because the buoyancy is a little bit more neutral, whereas the Vanquish has a lot of buoyancy in the legs, which is usually the faster way of swimming for most, especially if you come from a run or cycle background. That obviously helps keep the legs a bit higher. But I like the Aspire because I think it has that more well-rounded buoyancy for the way that I swim, and it just makes me feel like I'm on top of the water that bit higher. So that's why I go for the Aspire over the Vanquish. The Vanquish is obviously brilliant because it's super flexible. The confidence in equipment, I think, is everything. You've done 9 months of really hard training for a day, and the equipment has to show up for you. And that's why I'm really proud and happy to be working with Zone 3. And I think the best thing for me is that because it's a British brand, I've got very close contact. I mean, even now we're here testing equipment, testing different sizes. So I'm really happy to be a part of the team and have that close working relationship going into the World Championships.
Yeah, and I think it's an area, wetsuits as a whole, is, if we look at triathlon like as the whole sort of area of sport, and we look at people that spend thousands of pounds on bikes and everything else, but when they come to swimming, it tends to be most triathletes' weaker area as a whole. Yes, we've got some very good swimmers out there that come from a swimming background, but generally a lot of swimmers out there try to save money within their swim, and they'll save money around things like wetsuits and stuff like that. But I'm a firm believer that, yes, swimming is a smaller area of the triathlon as a whole, but marginal gains matter, so equipment is vital, and people need to invest in and look at things like wetsuits and equipment they're using, not just in racing but in training as well. So how would you feel, or how would you say that sort of transfers into the equipment that people are using for general training, and time spent on areas that might be weaker can gain marginal gains? And as a whole for swimming, how does that fit into, or how is that fitted into your life? And I know you obviously do a lot with swimming and other athletes and stuff as well. But how much would you be an advocate to say that matters?
Oh, it matters hugely. I think, the water is a lot harder of a medium to push through, and there's a lot of people that will spend extortionate amount of time and money into trying to be as aero as possible. But if you want to be if you're really keen on that sort of thing, then your ability to break through the water is a much harder thing to do, and therefore the equipment is a lot more important to be able to do that. And I think that the main thing with swimming is you've got to feel confident and you've got to feel relaxed to get the best out of yourself. So when you're swimming in a suit that you really like, or a suit that's really buoyant or really dynamic through the water, you can then have that confidence to relax. And it means that if you have a fast suit, it means you can break away from almost the clutter of a start. Then you get to miss all of that panic and stress, and ultimately the fresher that you come out of the water, the better that you're going to feel on the bike and the run. You're setting your day up for success. And I think for people that just look at the swim as almost like an afterthought, they're not appreciating that you need to be able to move efficiently through the water, which requires good equipment. And then also that if you're getting onto the bike and the run already tired, you can't really bring that back unless you just stop. Once you're already tired, there's no coming back from that. So set up your day for a good day. Don't wait to race day to find out that what you're working with isn't good enough.
Yeah, and as the British record holder, what's next for yourself? What's next for Kieran Lindars? What's the next target?
So the next big target would be to perform at the European Championships, and then follow that on to the World Championships. Those are the two big goals of the season.
Okay, and do you think sub 7:30 is on the cards?
Oh, definitely.
Good. So do you think that's so looking for the world champs then? What's your target for that race?
So I came 8th in 2024. So the next progression would be top 5. But if you're looking at going for top 5, at that point you might as well say go for the podium. So I think the big goal for myself and for Zone 3 over the next few years of working together would be to get me in a position where I could challenge for those top spots, and I think that's what really drives me over everything.
Okay, and what's something you'd say with elite Ironman racing then, and most age groupers, what they misunderstand within Ironman racing? What do you think is something they're missing?
I think the main thing that they're missing, but also the main thing that a lot of those athletes don't have access to, is allowing their body to rest and giving their body a bit more time to absorb what they're doing. And I understand, I think the age group athletes that have full jobs, have families, I think that's the hardest thing, is to do all of that and then come home and then smash their body through training. So I think it's the hardest thing that you can do. So I have a lot of respect for them, and for that reason, because this time is very valuable, they also don't have a lot of time to sleep, to rest. So I think if I could say anything to the age group population or people that live a busy life that are trying to do triathlon, I would say is don't underestimate how much rest plays on everything, and to just take a little bit more time for yourself to enjoy the sport, because there is a point at which you're training and the body is not getting any benefit for it.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks very much for answering my questions today with Zone 3. I'd just like to open it up to the floor and see if anyone else has got any questions that they would like to ask Kieran Lindars right now.
Hi, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I think an easy piece of advice for most people racing the Ironman distance would be to say that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So just not trying to rush things. So transition is a classic example of, if you try and do it really fast, you'll lose time if you try and do it too fast and you make a mistake. So I always try and, with my Ironman racing, is to be smooth and therefore fast, and that often means actually taking your time a little bit more to make sure that you nail it first time, than try and rush it first time, make a mistake, and then you're just losing time to try and make up for that mistake.
Hello. For someone starting out thinking, will be doing their first Ironman, what's the best advice that you would give to someone starting out?
I think the best performances come from having fun with it. So I think particularly when you're starting out and there's lots of information and there's lots of people pulling you in different directions, is just to make sure that you're having fun with it. Find a good group of people to do some training with, to take that burden off of yourself, and just try and keep it fun, because as soon as it becomes a chore, you won't enjoy it and you won't be able to get if you're going out the door and you're already thinking, I don't want to do this, it's probably unlikely that you're not going to get the best out of yourself. So try and put yourself in an environment where you are looking forward to doing it, and therefore doing it well isn't a burden on you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just say thank you to Kieran Lindars for coming down today. Thank you for everyone else who's coming in and obviously trying Wetsuits, and obviously meeting myself and Kieran. And a thank you to Zone 3 for continued support as both a pro athlete and an ambassador, and wishing Kieran and Zone 3 all the best in the future.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone.